Could be all set.
Okay. Okay, welcome to the Town of Scarborough Ordinance Committee meeting of October 9th. Counselor Katarina is here, that's me. And I also have my fellow counselors, Seither and Hamel. So all three are present. Could I have approval of minutes from September 11th, 2024?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? All right, now we're gonna have public comment. And the way we do it in ordinance is there's a 15-minute limit period for everybody and anybody to talk. Your outside limit is 3 minutes, so just be aware that there may be others who want to talk, but I'm pretty good at cutting it off at 15 minutes. Because the purpose of ordinance is to get work done with the council and make decisions more or less internally as to where we're going. And don't forget, we also have, if something gets passed out of the ordinance, it has numerous other opportunities for people to weigh in. So this is just the beginning. Anybody wish to speak?
Can I go first?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, go ahead. I told you she would go first.
Hand this out. This is a compilation of some questions that we received for the wetland.
Yeah.
Proposal. So it's the questions and then the comments without responses.
And I'm sorry to Dawn and April. I told her she could comment first before we do it. And then I forgot what I told her. So I apologize to the public. Hang on there.
They're super flex here.
Are you guys here for the wetlands? Okay. These are some responses to some questions. And I'm sure some of the folks in the room will have some of the questions too, and
Okay.
I'll go over them in the presentation a bit.
Okay, so you just wanted to hand those
I
out
just
right
wanted to
now.
hand
Is
those
there
out.
anything you want to have people look at while they're waiting for the wetlands? Because the
Sure.
environmental standards is the second item on the
Right.
agenda.
One of the questions that came up several times had to do with if the proposal would limit all development in wetlands, and we did want to make sure that everybody understood. This proposal does not prohibit wetland fill through the
Yeah.
state, and so you can still do that. What this would do is if you had a bubble of wetlands and you permitted a fill on that, it would have no effect on you whatsoever. But if you had maybe a finger of wetlands and you permitted that, you would have the new setback at that wetland that would change the wetland line. And then there's some other clarity in there about the 15-foot versus the 25-foot about what can happen. And there's a definition for wetlands that we will change to match the state definition.
Okay.
And there's also an amendment to change 25 to 50 feet for culvert crossing to align with DEP.
Pretty good. All right, let's talk about food first.
Or I think other people want to talk
Oh,
about.
I'm sorry, you have to limit. Don't. She breathes like, boom. Public comment, again, 15 minutes total. So who would like to, where do we want them to speak?
Small enough group, but if they would like to come up and just sit here, that would be helpful.
Okay. It can be on anything that's on this agenda, but keep it short to the point. Please.
Thank
And
you.
introduce yourself.
Sure. Brian Rayback. I'm a land use and environmental lawyer at Pierce Atwood. We represent the Downs. We have some pretty serious concerns about this ordinance. I heard that you guys do work. That's good. This needs a ton of work. What just got mentioned about this doesn't prohibit wetland fills. It only prohibits. I didn't follow that because frankly, I don't see that in this ordinance. So if that is to come, then great, we'd love to review that language when it comes. But right now we see this as a huge overreach. It's going to be stricter than any town in Maine by far, and we don't think it's needed. A lot of landowners are going to lose the ability to use their land completely because this essentially, as we read it, and with all respect to what she just said, we read this as basically barring all development within 25 feet of a wetland, and about a third of your town is wetland, right? So if you add a 25-foot buffer to that, it's going to be really hard to do anything. It's a very blunt instrument when you just employ a setback and say nothing can happen here. State law is much more nuanced. It's much more sophisticated. There's a balancing, there's an understanding of what are the functions and values of the wetland. You have to get wetland scientists involved, right? It's a technical process that allows wetland fills only when you can prove it's the least environmentally damaging practicable alternative. And so we think jumping directly into an ordinance, again, that with all due respect, that I read as really just creating setbacks from wetlands, it doesn't matter if the lot is in the growth zone. I mean, the town's done a lot of work on identifying zoning. Where do we want development? Where do we not want development? This seems to treat all wetlands as if they're the same. A wetland, the marsh obviously is different from something out near Buxton, the wetlands aren't all the same. And right now, the way this is written, it seems to suggest that they are. And so mindful of the 3 minutes, I'm going to wrap up here. Thank you. No, I saw you counting down. I appreciate that. We'd like to keep talking about it. We'd like to stay involved in this. To the extent there's more work, I think that would be a good idea at this point. Yeah. Thank you.
Next.
Good evening. My name is Drew Gagnon. I'm a civil engineer at Goral Palmer on behalf of the development community here in Scarborough. I want to provide comment on the environmental standards. So I design and permit numerous developments in Scarborough and around southern Maine, taking process from initial concept plans through construction. I want to provide a little bit of perspective from the designer and consultant side, representing a lot of the developers and landowners in this southern Maine portion. I was also part of the environmental roundtable, the working group that is referenced in your memos. And I provided comments earlier too. So in the interest of time, I just wanted to skip forward a little bit too. My understanding of the proposal really generated from construction setback issues. And I have a hard time following where the 15 and 25 feet come from a construction setback perspective. If the issue is enforcement in terms of abiding to a site plan that was approved, like you're right up against a wetland and a temporary impact, I would suggest that 15 and 25 feet don't really align with more of a construction setback. So I look at that as, why is there a blanket 25 feet rather than enforcement on certain situations where encroachment would occur beyond a site plan or subdivision approval. And Autumn did speak to how it's permitted. So if you permit an entire wetland, there's no setback, right? So it doesn't make sense. But if you permit a portion of a wetland to be filled, there's a setback line drawn from it. As a designer, that entices me to want to fill more wetlands to get the project you're trying to get. And I'm not saying that as the way it's written, it would entice you to do that. So it doesn't, I don't see that logically flowing through as intended. And I think that's kind of the opposite of what we're looking for here as a community, right? And then quickly, so the end of the ordinance does provide a waiver for wetland crossing into the site. There was some draft language that said if you provide avoidance and minimization and some culverts, you can impact a wetland. So the ordinance itself kind of justifies there are some situations that wetlands can be filled, and it's kind of contradictory to the ordinance. So why do we draw the line there? There are situations that we go through at the state level that you need to impact a wetland to get a development in, and we have to minimize and mitigate those wetland impacts. And I ask that the state definition, the state process we go through could be followed through on the local level as well. So I just have concerns with, I guess, the conflicting information, whether on this ordinance as well as the state level ordinance. And I did have some other comments on the ordinance language I provided in comment. It looks like Autumn addressed those in terms of the culverts and stuff. So I'll put up there.
And you can always email us.
Correct.
Your full comment.
Yes, I have those. Those are in the packet that are
Oh, okay.
there. So yes, thank you.
All right, thanks. Next.
Hello, everyone. My name is Nancy St. Clair. I'm with St. Clair Associates. I participated in the SEDCO May 23rd, 24 Developers Forum and had a few comments. I'm a civil engineer. I'm a consulting engineer and have been practicing engineering as a licensed professional in the state of Maine for 34 years, most of which has been in the southern Maine area. So I've seen a lot of the evolution of the ordinance requirements, et cetera. And I've understood some of the background as to why those changes came about, et cetera. And although there is a proposal before you, I think that what we'd like to be able to do is have more of an opportunity to discuss the details of that proposed ordinance change, such that we don't end up with unintended consequences, that we don't end up with a situation where it's a blanket identification of a setback and buffering requirement, where the purpose of the original ordinance requirements were very different. And I'd like to be able, as an engineer, to be able to make sure that the basis of any buffering or setback requirements is based in the science and the technology that's associated with protection of wetlands. I've dealt with the core regulations and done permitting for wetlands over decades. I have dealt with local regulations throughout the state, as well as state regulations, and seen them evolve over that 34-year period. And as evidence of the fact that we need to do more work, there's a 6-page comment and response memo that we received based on comments that were made by a small group of folks that sat at a roundtable on August 28th. I was invited to that meeting. Unfortunately, I was out of state and did not have the opportunity. It wasn't something that I could Zoom into. Had I done that, I would have certainly been in it. But one of the other striking things to add is that at that developers forum meeting, there were 31 representatives from the development community that were very interested and very concerned about the environmental standards ordinance that was being proposed at the time. I would like to have the opportunity to have more of those folks reconvene and have further discussions with the staff, with you folks, before this goes forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. We have about 6 minutes. Quick.
Can I
Yes.
ask a favor, Jean Marie, because these are all the people in opposition, but we also have folks in favor. Can we extend the time? I don't think anybody cares about food trucks.
I was
Is that
covering it. Let me
Okay.
stop hijacking my.
I'm so sorry.
Good evening, Rocky
I'm just
Risborough.
kidding, everybody. I'm sorry.
Do I have the
Go.
floor? Rocky Risborough, 287 Black Point Road.
Yeah.
Many of you know who I am and know of my family's occupation over the last number of years, 50 years in Scarborough. We've done a lot of development. We've done 20% of the dwelling units in town and over 1 million square feet of commercial space. And we've seen a lot of changes over the years, and a lot of them have been good changes. I don't feel that this ordinance is ready to go to the council yet. To me, it feels like it's been written in a silo. I think that the Conservation Commission's done some good work and they want to move forward with some changes to the ordinance. But there are a lot of other committees in this town that have done good work and have goals that want to be done. And this one is going to bump into a lot of things from a development standpoint. We're not going to be able to deal with those types of setbacks and continue to do the type of smart development that this town deserves. And I urge the council to take the time with this. I'm not sure, frankly, why the town of Scarborough has to be more restrictive than the state and the federal government. I don't understand that. But I think we need to take our time with this and figure out what is reasonable. There's a lot of people who are going to be affected by this, and they aren't represented. That last roundtable that was had, there were 2 engineers from the private sector. That's all that attended. No one else was there. No landowners were there. No landowners were invited. So it's going to affect a lot of people, a lot more than what the original map that was done by the committee shows. And so I think you really need to take some time with this. So thank you.
Thank you. Can I ask? You can hold on one sec. is there anybody here with food trucks? Cause well, other than you, I know, but, if it's okay with my members, I'm gonna flip the agenda. And we will take up the wetlands before we do food trucks. Is that okay with you too? Just because people are, they go on and dinner, whatever. All right. Okay, Pete Slavinsky, please.
Hi, members of the committee. Pete Slavinsky, 3 Ironclad Road. I'm also a member of the Conservation Commission and also a member of the working group that passed these recommendations forward to you. I think one of the things that makes Scarborough unique is its wetlands. We are a unique community because of the wetlands, the tributaries, the streams, the rivers, the creeks, and everything that we have that flows into the Scarborough Marsh, which is the gem of our community. It's recognized in our comp plan. It's recognized basically in everything we say. It's recognized on our website. And the Conservation Commission worked for many months researching buffers and setbacks in other communities in the state of Maine and also in the state of New Hampshire, and came up with a proposal in April that was placed before you. And the working group that met and came up with this current recommendation, I view the work that we did as kind of a compromise in terms of some pretty rigorous standards that we passed originally. So what this proposal does is it allows for at least some standardization of setbacks and buffers that would protect the resources in our town. Is the work done? No. We've already decided that the work group is going to reconvene in January. And I think it's very, very important that this working group will move forward looking at the other natural resources in our town that are extremely important to the identity of our town, the ecosystems in our town, the habitats in our town, and also the growth areas of our town. And we have to be able to develop some compromises in terms of how this is going to move forward. And I look forward to participating in that effort. Thank you.
Thanks. You guys can line up if you want.
Steve Panetta, I live at 16 Goldwood Drive in Scarborough. I'm past president of Friends of Scarborough Marsh. I'm also co-principal investigator for a restoration grant that we got from NOAA this spring. And one of the things that grant is looking to do is to model the current hydrology of the marsh and also do projections for future sea level rise scenarios. And one of the purposes of that is to look at what abutting properties are going to be flooded in the future. And so a setback from a 25-foot setback for now is essentially going to be submerged in the future, potentially, depending on the property. So to me, a 25-foot setback is inadequate, especially looking at the marsh. Also, there's more stormwater that's going to be discharged in town as we get more precipitation with climate change. And one of the things we've identified on the marsh through 2 studies that we've done is about 5% of the marsh is covered with invasives, the Phragmites that you see. Some people consider it nuisance, others think it's a nice ornamental plant. But nonetheless, 5% of the marsh is covered by Phragmites, and that is due primarily to a discharge of stormwater onto the marsh from residential subdivisions, from commercial development. The Dunstan southern side of Route 1 in Dunstan Marsh is a perfect example of that. The northern side is an example of residential stormwater discharge. So I guess I know this 25 feet is a compromise, setback is a compromise, but I don't think it's advisable. I think we're going to model properties going to be underwater in 50 years, 25 years for some, even sooner for some. So why would you move development boundary closer to the marsh or closer to wetlands, even, North Carolina, Western North Carolina, East Tennessee, perfect examples of that. They've never experienced floods. These rivers received a lot of precipitation during Helene. And wetlands are just, they're a sponge to absorb temporary stormwater. But if you built right up to the toe of the wetland, or you fill a wetland, water's still going to go there. That's the watershed. So I think to encroach further toward the wetlands or the marsh is inadvisable in my mind. I'd move it in the other direction. I mean, we're going to have in 2 years, we're going to have the results of a modeling study that's going to show properties and property owners that are going to be underwater. Partially, so this is inadvisable in my mind.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? How many people want to speak? Anyone other than, oh, you?
Yeah.
Okay. We'll get them in.
I've been seeing a lot of people's noses, so I don't get too close. Good evening. I'm Randy Hogan. I'm the chair of the Conservation Commission and a landowner here in Scarborough. I'm here in strong support of the proposed ordinance changes for the environmental standards. These are a necessary step to protecting one of our vital natural resources, which is our wetlands. Wetlands are nature's flood control system, filtering pollutants and providing critical habitats. And in a coastal town like ours, where the impact of climate change is increasingly evident through more severe storms, these ecosystems are essential to maintaining water quality, mitigating costly damages, and preserving property values and our town's appeal. The 25-foot setback and with its 15-foot vegetative buffer is a modest but crucial step in fortifying this natural infrastructure. Some may argue that this ordinance will hinder development, but it actually enhances it. By providing clear, consistent standards, we're offering predictability to developers while ensuring that new projects are designed with respect for our natural surroundings. And this balance is essential for maintaining Scarborough's character, quality of life, and the natural beauty that attracts residents and visitors alike. I understand that there are concerns about restrictions on developable land, but this proposal is a compromise. It's a carefully considered first step. It's the result of extensive discussions among conservationists, developers, their consultants, and town officials. It's far less stringent than what the best science tells us is needed, and it includes reasonable provisions like waivers for wetland crossings. This ordinance respects both our desire for responsible development and our duty as environmental stewards. And in closing, I ask you to support this ordinance, urge the council to approve it. By doing so, we'd be taking the right step forward and declaring our town as a leader in both economic development and environmental protection. We would affirm that our natural resources are assets to cherish, not obstacles to overcome. Let's take this critical action together for our town now and into the future. Thank you.
Before, you can come up. Do we have anyone online? Because I forget about online.
We do have some online. Not indicated that there's.
Okay. I just want to check that here before. Okay. So you're a counselor, you can go last.
Okay. Karen Shoup, Pine Point Road. I serve as the liaison to the Conservation Commission, so I've been working with them closely in regards to this. I wasn't sure if I was going to speak, but I think something that wasn't mentioned tonight was why this started. And this started because the DEP is going to our staff and saying, you need to do more. So we're being told by the Department of Environmental Protection, we need to do more as a town. And I understand their regulations are through the whole state. We're a little bit different. We have the largest saltwater marsh, and we're being consistently told by them, we need to do more. So in response to that, staff has spent a substantial amount of time working with the Conservation Commission on this ordinance. And I think as you've heard from them tonight, this was a huge compromise. You've heard from other people that this doesn't even come close to what's really needed for the marsh. So when we look at the process that we've been through, I know there were some concerns. This has been, I think we've gone through the process. You guys already saw this previously earlier in the spring, and you said, nope, it needs more work. We did that work, and that's why we're here today. We had those workshops, and we got feedback from the development community, but that's it. So yes, we're implementing some setbacks, but every town has setbacks. We seem to be lacking where other towns don't. So, I think developers are used to dealing with setbacks, and this is something that's not uncommon for them to work with. I think there was
concern expressed over how restrictive we're being, but why are we being so restrictive? Because we have the largest saltwater marsh in the whole state and we have an obligation to protect it. And I don't think we're doing a very good job right now. According to the Maine Department of Environmental Protection, wetlands benefit Maine people in a number of ways. They help prevent flooding by slowing down and absorbing water, right, which might otherwise end up in our properties or in our basements. Wetlands gradually release stored water to rivers and streams to maintain flow throughout the summer and recharge groundwater aquifers so our wells do not go dry. They protect our shorelines from erosion by absorbing the shockwave of action and preserve water quality by retaining sediment, nutrients, and other pollutants. They can also help us to mitigate climate change and adapt and build greater resilience to extreme weather events. Despite their importance, the wetlands across the globe are under serious threats. Disappearing 3 times faster than forests, approximately 35% of the world's wetlands were lost between 1970 and 2015. And the rate of decline continues to accelerate. In Scarborough, approximately 30% of privately owned parcels have mapped wetlands on them, and Maine DEP has noted Scarborough ranked 3rd in the number of development permits under review by the state. It is imperative that the management and protection of wetlands are considered during this development process. DEP staff also encourage and will mandate municipalities to address environmental impact at a local level. So again, this was a compromise that came forward. We're going to continue to work on the other ordinance that we had originally begun with. There will be more working groups, but we would like this to move forward.
Thank you. And with that, we're gonna wrap it up and begin our discussion. So again, for people who may be at home and thought we were talking food trucks first, we're not. We're switching. We're gonna do the wetlands first. So take it away.
All right. Share my screen. Right. So, and I do want to talk to you just briefly. We came before you in April and we had environmental standards. And those really contemplated wetlands, vernal pools, streams, rivers, coastal bluffs. And so now you'll notice the title is wetland protection. So we have scaled back significantly since that first meeting. So we're just focusing on wetlands. The comprehensive plan vision is one of the main statements of purpose is to really protect the marsh. It has to do with our identity, our environment, everything that really says Scarborough. I mean, it's part of our town logo and how you know that you are in Scarborough is the marsh. And so with that, it's really important to protect these resources. And I won't repeat all this. It's been said by many times, but there are many reasons to protect wetlands. And yes, some of this initial conversation came up because we have 0 setbacks against wetlands right now. And so when development comes through, you can build right up to it. If you have a fence right up to it, we all know it's impossible to build something without being on the other side of it. And so we started just thinking we need some bare minimum requirements. And so we went to the Conservation Commission. We started in June of 23. We went to them and we said, we need help with this. And through those conversations and research, we came up, we need even more. We not only need constructability, we need to really protect this resource. And what can we do? And we spent many hours, many months looking into that. We developed the original proposal that you all saw in April. And at that meeting, we came back, you said, put it back out there. So we took it to the Long Range Planning Committee. We did a developer forum in May, which SIGO helped organize. And we got very negative response. That's attached in your meeting minutes. And so we said, okay, well, we'll have this other roundtable meeting and we'll pick some folks from that meeting that we think would be a good group. And we had a lively discussion. Those many meeting minutes are attached as well. But what we came to is, okay, let's get to this compromise. And I will say that at that meeting, I think I personally left feeling pretty good. Like, hey, we started out very big. We've gotten very small, but I think this is manageable and everybody seems in agreement. And so honestly, seeing all of the negative response to that very large compromise is a bit disheartening. And I think knowing where we've come from and to say that we have not put this out there and talked about it is really unfair. We've worked on it for about 14 months. So the proposal that's before you now, these are protections for all new development. So new development requiring site plan or subdivision approval. So that's an important thing to note. There are added definitions and the overall natural resource setback is 25 feet. Within that 25 feet, there's 15 feet that must be maintained as a vegetated buffer. So that's original, I call it the sacred 15 feet that you can't really do anything in. There's a few things in the table that will allow you to address invasive species and whatnot, but really those 15 feet, it's what's the bare minimum in perfect scenarios for water quality mitigation. And so that's what that is. We've added a table that shows you what you can do in each of the areas. And then we also, as mentioned, included waivers for wetland crossings.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but it's just popped into my head. So when we're talking this 25-foot and 15-foot from wetlands, there are rules out there regarding like vernal pools, for example.
Correct.
And shoreland zones and streams and brooks. And those are all regulated now by state and federal setbacks.
Correct.
How does this work with this? And what's your definition? And I'm sorry if I'm asking too much. What's the definition of wetland that this applies to?
So this would apply to your forested wetlands, your freshwater wetlands, all of your wetlands, but most of the wetlands around the marsh would be captured in our resource protection zone. And then the shoreland zone as well. So we have a lot of protections in place for some of those areas. So this is really just, I think, and Jamie can jump in here too. I think it's really more about your forested wetlands or your isolated wetlands that don't have any other protections on them.
Yeah, because they aren't vernal pools or they're
right.
not.
And we
streams.
only have a few documented vernal pools,
Right.
But there's a 250-foot setback
Right.
for vernal pools. There is an allowance for some encroachment on
Right.
that. But that is not proposed to be changed in this either.
So who makes the definition of the wetland? I'm asking these questions as much for the
Sure.
audience.
So
for people.
we're using the state, and that's one of the definitions we needed to change. We got that comment, like,
Okay.
oh, you're right,
Yeah,
we need to
great.
fix that. So, the state's definitions.
Okay.
Can I also clarify with shoreland zoning? So shoreland zoning only applies to wetlands designated as significant wildlife habitat or containing 20,000 square feet of aquatic vegetation, emergent marsh vegetation, or open water. And that leaves the majority of Scarborough's non-tidal wetlands unprotected. So this would provide, as Autumn mentioned, a minimum level of protection with a 15-foot.
So we're plugging some so-called holes, so to
Correct.
speak, with, okay, sorry.
And so this is a
Yes,
great,
well,
a really good exhibit, I think, that gives you just a scaled version of, a view of what this would look like. So the wetland being on the right of the screen, and then this 15-foot sacred area that, you can't disturb. The 10-foot setback has some allowances for grading and what you need to do in there, and then your development. And so that's really what we're talking about. It's a 25-foot total setback.
And so
So-
what's allowed now, that so-called, let's
You-
pretend
the-
that's a parking lot.
The truck
parking lot
would be
could-
next to the cattails.
Okay,
So that's how you could do it now. And I will say too, some of the, so there's an opportunity here to also look, because I understand the development side of things. There's also an opportunity to look at our other setbacks. We have front yard setbacks that are
Oh.
greater than these wetland setbacks, right? So there's some give and take that can certainly be done. But this is a gap that I think we need to fill with the understanding that we can move forward looking at those other things too. Just to put that out there.
and that was gonna be one of my questions. I'm sorry, I'm plugging this again, is residential setbacks.
Mhm.
Because in being in that business and knowing, they're, housing lots are way smaller than commercial lots. And so you maybe, have a house and you've got I don't know, how's this gonna work with house lots, residential?
So if
The
you're doing a subdivision, it would apply and you would come in when you're setting up your home lots. Now, we already have in place a conservation subdivision design that you
Right.
can get reduced lot sizes for conservation.
Yeah.
And so you can use that and you get smaller home lot sizes. If you're just doing a one-off building permit or just a one-off home, it wouldn't apply because they don't have to go through subdivision or site plan. So this is really gonna apply to your it's gonna apply to quite a few things, all of your commercial development, because that all goes through site plan. And then subdivision, so if you have more than 3 lots, 4 lots, and you have a subdivision. would
So if
apply.
I'm a person who has 1 lot, for example, that I was planning to sell for my retirement. Cause there are people in
Sure,
Scarborough
sure.
with that, so this wouldn't apply to them as far as, okay.
Not if it's already a subdivided lot. You just go through your building permits. Now you're
that
gonna
in
have
the
to.
previous-
Yeah, can you, if people.
Was
don't
that in the
understand-
previous proposal and has
Yeah.
since been taken out? Or
No,
that
this was
not
always
considered?
contemplated to only apply for new development.
There has been language added saying that redevelopment doesn't need to comply, but they can't encroach farther into the wetland.
So they have to stop where they are now.
Or move back if
Yeah.
possible, if however they're planning to redevelop that lot would allow for that.
So that's a good point. So if you're on Route 1 and you're close to wetlands now and you want to start over and redevelop, you can still use that existing line that you have now. Can't make it worse, but you don't have to comply. Any questions about the exhibit?
No.
So this is the table that's in the ordinance, and again, there's 2 columns and it refers to the vegetated buffer area and then the area outside of the vegetated buffer area. So really very minimal things permitted in that first 15 feet, but then some things that you would need to do perhaps for development in the additional 10 feet. So this is just a summary of some of the questions that we received. The wetland impacts, you can still permit them through DEP and Army Corps. The new line would be the starting point for the local wetland setback. And I completely understand it's not, we can add language in here, to be very clear that this ordinance does not preclude anyone from doing that. If that makes it clear, I can
Yeah.
understand that need.
Yeah.
The limit of construction disturbance would be 15 feet from the wetland. So for some of the folks in the rooms, we would require the red pens set by surveyors to be at that 15-foot line, not at the 25-foot line, because there is some things you can do in that 10 feet. The wetland crossing culverts, we will amend that to match the 50-foot. That was an error. And then we will amend it to match the state's definitions for forested wetlands. So what we would request, we spent a lot of time with this, and I think it's time to put this in front of a full council and really decide, you all to decide and hash out what's to be done with it. So I would propose that we could go to council first reading November 6th, and then this, of course, would have to go to a planning board public hearing. That could be November 18th, December 4th, and December 18th. Of course, those dates could change at any point. I think this gives us some time to add some clarifying language to make the changes that we've talked about tonight. And anything else that you all may think appropriate.
So I had a
Go
question,
ahead.
process question. So, I mean, this is clearly something that you've been working on for a long time. There are interested parties who go pretty deep on this. It's pretty far reaching in terms of what it would mean. So the question I got is, thinking about the public, the average person is going to be seeing this for the first time. So the idea of moving something directly to a couple of actions, to me, seems a little, in spite of everything, all the work that's been done, it's a lot. I mean, it's even a lot for us, I think, to kind of get fully abreast of. So this is just one reaction. The other one I had is what happens if you don't do anything? What's the choice between moving it forward to, first or second reading or not? What are the other options in terms of socializing this for the public? There aren't any, right? Yeah.
The best socialization in my 10 years on the council is you make it real. And all of a sudden people show up and react, and that's why we have that process, and the council, the future council could, divide, like, make the public hearing and have the second reading separate. In other words, make it, separate, so that it's more, you know what I'm saying?
So if I
This is
ask the
one-
next door that I knock on, if I ask someone, I'm sorry, just let me finish the thought,
Yeah.
actually. If the next door that I knock on, I ask them, so what do you think about, setback standards for the marsh? People go, what? No, what is that?
Well, most people wouldn't. I mean, that's just the way it is.
So this is just my point, is that I
I know.
think that if you're gonna have meaningful participation of the public in this process, things like this we need to make sure they're being included. So I don't have a solution or suggestion or recommendation for what the next step would be, but I'm finding that even, and I'm a reasonably close follower of this stuff. I do read everything. It's still a lot. It's still a lot to kind of get my arms around. And this is no knock on all the work. I think it's terrific. And I'm a big believer in this for a lot of reasons. But I'm wondering, so there's a development, let me use a specific, there's a development at the end of the Pine Point Road in Dunstan. If this were in place today, would that development have been allowed to go forward? I see someone going like this, and I see someone going like that.
Which development are you
I'm
talking about?
The
The new one that's going
On the
One on
right-hand
Pine
side,
Point, on 48 Pine Point.
Yeah,
Yeah, they actually would. They did a conservation subdivision. They have a 250-foot setback from the resource protection zone. They actually worked with us to put 2.5 acres, dedicate that to the Scarborough Land Trust.
okay.
And we actually worked with them to get the wetlands out of individual lots. So yes, they worked with us knowing this was coming down the pike, and we talked to them about it, and we came up with some solutions.
Great. That's very helpful. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so just thinking about socializing this, to Dawn's point and to Jean Marie's point, a lot of times, we can have all kinds of committee at the committee level, but people don't really participate until it reaches the council level. And so if we did, we could propose a process where we did first reading and refer to the planning board at our November 6th meeting, which would then on the 20th come back to the council, or no?
I was proposing November.
Thank you so much.
See,
I was told this was a tough angle. I forgot that one was over
I
there.
was thinking November 6th for first reading, and then planning board November 18th, and then December 4th back to council. So I had already.
So you did divide out
Yeah,
the
I
hearing
just
and the
Divided
second.
it. I've learned
Yeah. that
to
seems like
divide
a
out.
long- That
But
seems
I
like a lot of opportunity for me for public engagement, so that would certainly satisfy me. I'm also thinking about onboarding 3 new members.
Mhm.
And
having them-
holidays.
Yeah,
Yeah.
all important considerations.
And not to make anyone sad, but 2 of us are leaving.
Yeah. Oh,
This is
trust
our
me,
last ordinance.
Trust me, I
meeting.
think about it every day.
Some are glad, some are sad.
Not that it matters, but it is good, I think, to have the same body of people and then move it forward. And I personally feel comfortable with moving it forward and then getting, folks like Rocky and others, to get out there with your people and start forging what you think it should look like at the end. Our job here at Ordinance obviously isn't to approve the ordinance per se. Is this a good concept? Does this make sense? Does the verbiage pretty much make sense? Knowing full right well that it could get changed. It could be denied, it could be turned down. By the council, because the next council will be seated. Tom, remind me. On the 18th.
Not the 18th, it's the second meeting in November.
Yeah, okay. I
The
can remember.
20th.
Okay. All right.
Here's a good question for you. Is there anything pending, something that, it's in the process that in terms of a development that would be affected by this if we put it in place according to this schedule? And if so, what would they have to do? Make modifications or? How does that work? If they're through the chute and so.
If they have standing, it wouldn't apply
Okay.
to them.
Okay.
It's new. It's anything.
We've been talking about it with development as they come in through pre-applications, just to be cognizant of it and to try. And that's been pretty positive. I will say, I think at this point, I'm respectfully asking for it to go to the full council, because I think we've gotten as far as we can get outside of that. I think we've been working on it, and I think that last meeting, like I mentioned, was a positive, but now I see that it's not as positive, and I think that we're at this point where we really need to do something else with it.
And I'm definitely, obviously, just in trying to be mindful of the timeline and the holidays and public engagement and, kind of this narrative that it's important to, it's a lot. That being said, I certainly get a sense that, from staff that you guys have taken this as far as you can, and that we need to start the more robust public process on this. And so with that, if there's not any more discussion,
Do you have anything else?
No.
I have nothing.
then I will make a motion to move the proposed ordinance to council as presented.
And I'll second that.
All in favor? All right, going to council. So if you guys don't want to stay for food trucks, you're free to leave. Not that I'm trying to throw you out. I know Rocky wants to talk about food trucks. I don't know. Just give them a second if we're open for this study. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks.
No.
And stay, and please stay involved and let the council know your opinions and why and whatever. Even though we still think it's. Still serve on the kitchen, yeah.
The owl is better because in the council chambers, I can't see behind me. At least I can see behind me.
Yeah.
Just for clarity, Autumn, in your presentation, there was a slide that showed 3 or 4 further modifications to the ordinance that you proposed. I presume the action you took included that.
Yeah.
As proposed. Okay.
I'll update that and I'll update our website with the latest
Thank
strategy.
you.
Great.
And circulate this.
All right, food trucks. Boy, I remember when these first came up and some people, a lot of restaurants were like, no way. Now I'm hearing, yeah, we need food trucks, so.
So this one's fun. So this is mobile food vendor proposal. Why now? So since I've been here for a little over 2 years now, we've had several requests to actually, do you guys allow food trucks? Can we do food trucks? We do have a policy in place right now to permit them at events and one-off sort of catered things, and even at businesses that cater only to their employees. But we did get a specific request, which I'm really excited about, for a mobile food court. And so we started this process. I took it to Long Range Planning Committee in August, and then in September. It started out with a mobile food court site that you could do for just one food truck, and then a court. That became a bit confusing, so Long Range Planning Committee just decided to talk about mobile food courts, and that is really 2 or more. So we moved on with that. Sedco helped us put out a survey. We sent that to all of the restaurants, the delicatessens, things of that nature in September. A couple of times we received 1 response, so I took that as a positive that nobody hated the idea. We also did an online Zoom opportunity where I did this presentation essentially. No one attended that, but we did record it and it's available online. So try. No one hates the idea. So this one is a little trickier. It's kind of set up, it's a multi-part ordinance change. So like I mentioned, first we have to define the use, what are they? And then we had to figure out where they can go. And then we need a license because it's similar to a food handler's license. So it's in multiple parts. These are the definitions. These are borrowed and collected from other towns, but basically the mobile food vendor is what you know of as a food truck. And then the mobile food vendor court allows 2 or more. So the zoning considerations, I am recommending that the mobile food vendor court use be allowed in all of our non-residential districts that currently permit restaurants. So just to be in the same line. So these are the areas in town, all of your TBC, Tigers Parkway, the Downs, who actually requested the court, the Running Hill, B2, B3, BOR, and industrial. Light industrial zone does not permit restaurants, so I didn't include it in there. So we originally had it to where these exempt locations wouldn't have to get a license. But and that's why you have public safety red lines. Public safety looked at it and said, you know, we should really require a license for everyone. It's an equal playing field. If you want to have a food truck in Scarborough, you just get a license. So the ordinance has been amended just a bit for that. So basically there's 4 places you could have a food truck in Scarborough. You cannot drive them around from location to location. You can do them on a one-time event for less than 36 hours. Private catered events, still that can be every day, but it's really for those businesses and it's not open to the general public.
Can you remind me, private catered events, they have to get a license?
Cater,
Yeah.
you need a caterer.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
And then that mobile food truck court, right? So this is not permitted. The individual is just pulling up to random parking lots. That's not contemplated. So the thing about the mobile food vendor court, this is designed for, these uses would have to meet our site plan standards, the same as a restaurant would. Essentially, we have, so all of your landscaping, screening, stormwater, lighting, all those things apply. Your architectural design standards do not apply to the mobile food vendor units, because that would be impossible. But if you have any fixed structures or anything like that, they would. Signs and utilities all would apply. So it's even playing field. We do have the performance standards for the court. Again, the setbacks would apply for the zoning districts. Electrical connections are required for each pad. There needs to be a 10-foot separation between each pad. They have to be paved, and if they're not paved, it has to be an approved surface through the planning process. So we contemplated that it could be perhaps be a combination of pavement and gravel. I think we've all probably seen those types of situations. So this is the example I like to give. I am the owner of the mobile food vendor court, and I'm going to create my site plan and go to planning board. And I'm simply going to have rectangles on my plan showing where the mobile food vendors can go. The planning board is not going to approve my end users. It's not going to be a theme or anything like that. They're not going to see those trucks. So I'm going to get approval for my court. And then you all may have a food truck. You're going to go to the town. You're going to contact me and say, yep, I want to go on there. We work out our lease. You go to the town clerk, you would get your license, and then you're all set. And you could stay for a month, 3 months. The planning board doesn't have any authority.
That's between the owner.
That's between the owners. And I just want to make that really clear. The court does not regulate what trucks go on the site. It's just getting it ready for them. EV parking standards do not apply for the court. We thought that would be a little unreasonable because the parking is limited to various uses. So again, that license is just for the food trucks operating. And speaking with the town clerk, we think that would take the place of the food handler's permit, so you don't get both, right? And it would follow the same approval process, so town council the first time and then renewals. I tried to actually get that taken out, but legal counsel told me we needed to leave that in council.
Yeah.
I didn't want you all to suddenly have, 30, I could envision.
License.
Yeah.
Too much divvy those up, right?
But generally the licenses would need to meet all of the state requirements. There's the main eating place license, food, beverages. And then we spent a little bit of time about this. If you want to sell t-shirts or mugs that have that's okay too. It started out as just food and beverage, but associated, related, and incidental goods is fine as well. The equipment, No fuel power generators on the mobile food vendor courts. If you did the catering or a one-time event, that wouldn't comply, but we wanted the courts to really have electrical capacity.
Yeah.
Pretty simple stuff. There's some requirements for size, very reasonable, water, electrical, self-contained. And the trailer vehicle needs to be registered. Inspection.
Can I ask a
Oh,
quick
sure.
question too? So, trying to think of places, food trucks I go to in Portland or Peaks Island. They can have their own propane, right, on their trucks? Cause I know some of them
Yes,
have propane
that's-
for their cooking or
Yes,
whatever,
that's
okay,
gas, not fuel. So it was
Okay.
really about gasoline and diesel, not
gotcha,
wanting gasoline and diesel
gotcha, okay,
generators.
all right.
So then additional requirements, there's an inspection requirement in the licensing. Part of the licensing, is there's a refuse and waste plan. Again, if I'm the owner of the court, I just give them, and they would supply that to the town clerk. We are recommending a fee of $250. That's what, we require now for other licenses of this nature. And insurance is required.
Yeah.
So again, I have the same proposal for dates, if you all are comfortable with that. This would have to go to planning board as well, so I have November 6th for the first reading. Excuse me, and then planning board, November 18th, town council.
So, bear with me, so these license requirements additional, are they requirements of both the landlord? I'll call
No.
and each individual
No, it would just
person?
be each of the trucks. So
Okay.
as
good,
the owner
okay.
of the food court, you just have to get your site plan, and then you're
Okay.
good.
But each truck has to have their own
Each-
insurance and what,
Each truck that comes in has
and they
to
can't
have
be
their own.
blasting.
Right,
Disco
no
music.
amplified.
Okay,
There was also a question I did have about operation hours. I have
yeah,
it highlighted as at 5 AM and ending at 9 PM. We didn't get anywhere with that in the long range planning discussion, so I would be comfortable
what's
like not
5
worrying
a.m.?
about hours of
5
operation.
a.m.? That's the middle of the night, no.
We have some early bird breakfast folks, that. was
No, I know,
actually-
that's what I was
yeah.
thinking, and part of me, when I saw the 5 a.m., I'm going. I can hear some people who may live near going, what? But I don't know,
This was something that, I didn't get a lot of feedback on. It
Yeah,
seems like
okay.
we may not even,
but it's something that would be covered as we bring it forward through the
Right,
process,
right.
so, okay,
I'd want to get further guidance on this.
yeah, yeah. And I'm being funny when I say it's middle of the night. I'm not up at 5 a.m. Yeah.
Can I ask, I'm sorry, can we change the dimensions? It's 8.6 inches. I know it's not,
Is there a typo?
yeah, no, I don't think
What is?
we just, if you have 8 foot. The boxes
eight.
are 8.6, and if we're gonna be very particular.
What?
Under your
Yeah.
dimensions of the dimensions, the width,
Which slide?
it's the
It's
slide that's
license
right up there, it's the
requirements.
third bullet. Autumn,
Yeah,
Where it says.
Oh, I
license
see.
requirements equipment, it's
Yeah.
30 feet long, 13 feet tall, and 8
8
feet
feet
wide.
wide.
They're
And you're saying it's
8.6.
8.6.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's an
okay.
odd size.
oh, gotcha.
Sorry,
Can I just change that to 10 feet?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'd say
right.
10, make it
Right.
10. Thank you.
I didn't want to get down to.
No,
measuring my,
I don't, yeah, no, that's fine with me.
okay, thank you.
You guys covered this, but is there a limit for how long a truck can be in one place?
No, so in the court, right, in the court, it could be there, year round, forever. And now in the one-time event, it's 36 hours in operation. And then the catered event, it really depends on how long that event occurs.
Okay, because don't some towns charge, I mean, I'm thinking of Old Orchard, for example, and it's not food trucks, but if they're in one place for so long, don't they start charging property tax for them? Or maybe a drain.
I'm not sure.
Far be it from me to propose more taxes, but.
I was just saying that.
The owner of the
Right,
food
well-
court would be paying property tax.
Right.
Had.
But that,
These guys are tenants, so.
They probably pay property tax on their
Business equipment.
business equipment,
So to speak.
right?
I guess.
We can slice that kind of thing, but
Anyway,
that's
yeah.
helpful, thank
yeah.
you.
Any questions?
Nice work on this.
I know, while you're thinking,
Yeah.
I'm thrilled to finally see food trucks in Scarborough. It's been a while, and I think this makes a lot of sense. And what's been worked out so far, I like it. I think it should go forward to council
I remember when we first started talking about here, like.
years ago. No, I wasn't there. I was like, let's go.
I did have a question on the license requirements. It says, the vehicle or cart must be attended during operating hours. Is that, I'm just thinking that are you saying that each cart needs to operate?
When it's
When the court is
when
open?
it's in operation. Somebody
Well,
has,
the cart is in operation, not when the court is in operation.
right, just the,
So, yeah, the court
The
could be
truck.
open.
Yeah.
There might be 5 carts, but only.
But
3
someone's
are
away on
open.
vacation,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, I think I'm good. I thought I had a zoning question, but.
so, really Route 1, Payne, Tigers. There's no, little bit of, industrial off of Pleasant Hill. There's nothing on the beach that has zoning that would
Right.
allow this to come forward. There's nothing west of the turnpike, except for the Running Hill.
Yeah, that area
Next
to my house.
Yeah.
Pretty long.
Yeah, I think that was that was my zoning. Just kind of having a.
That's a question that's come up,
Yep.
and you do this at the beach with this,
Yep.
and it wouldn't.
It's not allowed.
That was one of the, way back when, that was one of
Right.
the concerns was, well, it would be too congested or whatever, so this makes sense, we were talking about having them, so.
just one thing that, we've been considering for some time, we need to do improvements to Herd Park. And right now, there's a bathhouse and a concession at the end. That building, majority of it exists within the dune and will likely have to get moved and relocated. One consideration will be, do we build back the concessions, or is it possible to create a couple of pad sites for this kind of use? So for us to do it, would we go through the same standards and create a mobile vendor park? I
For,
could see us leasing it out on a seasonal basis
the
or something like that.
town to do it, you would go. You could, but what you're required to do is an advisory opinion from the planning board, because you wouldn't have the correct zoning to actually
And
do.
they need
Yeah.
a context.
Yeah.
Right, and you wouldn't do that,
For
but you would-
non-conforming use.
as the town, we could still do it, but I would say we would want to meet all of our other requirements.
Full
and then-
standards.
Right, right.
Okay.
Um,
That's one, I don't know
That's
if
a
we
good
go that
question.
direction. I want to make
Sure.
sure we didn't include that option.
All right, what do you guys want to do with this?
Okay to go.
Make a motion?
I'd like to suggest this goes forward to council in the order and fashion that was proposed.
Second?
All in favor? Okay. That was it, right? Future agenda items. I don't know, I don't have any more, I don't have a future, so. At least not here, not at this level. Let me clarify that to the public.
Good thing the campaign's over. Okay, sure.
Anything in the line, Autumn?
No,
Famous last words.
not right now,
Okay.
no, we talked about looking at short-term rentals next year.
Yes,
in the
yeah.
spring, and I'm honestly not in a hurry to take
Yeah.
that back up, but no, I don't have anything else coming
Okay.
down. We may have a few little small things, requests here, nothing big.
Okay, and so we've already made our motions and we've already recommended things with the council. But I think in the spirit of kind of wrapping up the end of one sitting committee and getting ready for a new committee to sit in January, it seems like we have set them up for success and that we're
Yes.
at a good stopping place.
Yeah.
So that's really
I
good.
agree.
I wish I could say the same thing about all my committees. I feel like I left kind of a mess.
That's okay.
Yeah, that's right.
So do I have a movement for?
It's
adjourn?
just we make a proposal to end the meeting.
Second.
I'm very sad this is ending, but, all right, all in favor?